the podcast nowhere near Hollywood. It's Afternoon Coffee with Mike and Tim.
Hey, that was good. What I was thinking was maybe welcome to the Afternoon Coffee Podcast with Mike and Tim.
Nice try, boys, but this is how it should sound. This is the Afternoon Coffee Podcast with Mike and Tim.
Thank you, Heather. And we will pick up right where we left off with part 2 of our interview with Randall Franks.
Would you also speak with us about the foundation that you started? I want to hear about that.
Well, as I mentioned, my late mom and dad were integral parts of the music career that I have, and as well as all those other young people, in mentoring and helping them along their way in their desires to play music. When my mother passed away in 2006, I think in her way, I had come off the road in 2001. I basically told my agents, okay, let's take no more movies. I'm not going to tour for a while. I've got to focus and take care of my mom. And so she passed away in 2006. And so there was a period of about 5 years there that I was not in the forefront of the industry. And as the old saying goes, out of sight and out of mind. So in her mind, I think she said, okay, we need to give you a focus. We need to find some things for you to put your energies in as you come back. And she said, I want you to take some of your time, and I want you to create a foundation, and I want you to continue what we were doing, what me and your dad were doing to encourage young people. And so we created the Share America Foundation. In fact, Mother's homegoing celebration was the first initial fundraiser for the foundation. And so we had not all, but many of our music friends come in, and we did a homegoing celebration for her, a concert, and that kicked off the foundation. And in 2006, and then we had a formal opening concert with Dottie Rambo in 2007. And from then we've produced hundreds, concerts, well over 100, I say hundreds, well over 100 concerts in Ringo, raising money for the scholarship. And we give in Pearl and Floyd Franks scholarship. About 30 young people, I think, currently have received the scholarship and helping them pursue their goals. And it doesn't necessarily mean that they're wanting to be musicians or entertainers. We've got young people who went on to study to be doctors, to medical technicians. We've got one young man who's a physicist, mathematicians, history teachers. It's an amazing group of people, but they're continuing the Appalachian music with their talents. And that was their goal, with what they did with us, and ultimately what Mother wanted me to do with their scholarship is keep these young people growing. But as you said, encouragers come in all ages and sizes. You don't have to be encouraging or mentoring just another young person. You can be mentoring someone your own age, or even someone older than you that is taking on a new path in life. So that's the nice thing about being an encourager. There's no age limits.
Who should we be looking at today, Randall, as far as an upcoming music star or in that, maybe an actor, but who should we be looking at today? Is there someone that stands out that maybe you've encouraged or that you've seen someone else encourage?
I've seen a couple. Well, there's several that I know of that are amazing talents, but a couple that I've had personal contact with that have. One young man is from up in the Northeast. His name is Frankie Justin, talented country singer. He's also breaking over and crossing into acting. I think he's going to be potentially a very, very successful country performer in the future. Another young man that I met, actually, this is how I met him, is sort of like we're doing. He and another young girl, they were about, I think, 8 or 9 years old at the time, had their own radio show, and it was on worldwide. It was sort of like a Disney kind of show, and there were kids that listened to it all over the world. And I went on to their show to talk about what I was doing. And the young man's talent just emanated. I saw him perform, and he's about, I think, 16 or 17 now. And he is, before the pandemic, was a regular fixture in the performance venues in Nashville. His name
Mm.
is Landon Wall. And in fact, he's featured among our other young talents on our Americana Youth of Southern Appalachia album that we brought
Oh,
out last year. We have over 30 young people on this album. Ryan's on it. You mentioned Ryan Stinson. Landon Fitzpatrick's playing banjo with Ralph Stanley II. Now he's playing banjo on here. Nicholas Hickman, Trevor Holder, just a whole list. Mountain Cove Bluegrass Band, a lot of talented people. This went #1 for the Share America Foundation for us last year in the Global Americana charts. And all of the young people who had a cut on this album individually charted their singles. So it's actually been on the charts 3 times in the last year.
how
Top
about that?
30 in February of this year, top 30 in September, and then #1 last June. Uh,
Wow.
so and it's a fundraiser that folks can download this. They can put Americana Youth in Southern Appalachia in their search engine, find it on Amazon, download it, and that helps us fund the scholarship. Or you can go to shareamericafoundation.org, and by going there, you can get a physical copy of the CD by donating for it.
Now, when before all the pandemic and all that, I think you've actually had that in some of our coffee shops here in Ringgold. Is that correct? I think
Locally
you
in
have.
Ringgold, it's been available at Unique Things and Southern Tradition, Stuff for Less, as well as the It's So Time, all 3 of those locations in downtown Ringgold.
In our
Uh,
coffee shop, right? I
yeah,
think it's been
I don't think it's currently in the coffee shop. They have carried some of our past fundraisers. I
okay.
don't think this one is in there, but those other 3 locations should still have copies if people want to stop by and get a copy when everything opens back up, or you just call them and say, I want to pick
Okay.
one of those up, and
Yeah.
you can
See,
get
I
them there.
would love to be side by side with you. I voiced a book called Case File number 1948, and it's all about the time era of 1948. It's a murder mystery, and it's
Hmm.
actually in Caffeine Addicts. So when you
Oh,
go in there,
great.
you'll see that. So maybe you and I could have the honor of having our material together. I would be honored. Hey,
Well,
let's talk about. There are 3 people that just stand out in my mind that you've had the honor of serving along beside. And way back when, let's just grab your memory of Carol O'Connor, and then we'll talk
hmm
about 2 others. But first of all, Carol O'Connor. Just tell us what you can tell us about Carol.
um, my first impression, I started on In the Heat of the Night as an extra. A lot of people aren't aware of how you get your start in television. I had been over. I'd done a film, my crossover film, "Desperate for Love" on CBS as an entertainer. I went over
Wow.
as a singer, and when they started In the Heat of the Night, the casting director said, "They don't have anything for you to do, but I want them to meet you. So I want you to go down. I want you to be an extra."
Wow.
And so the very first day of filming, August of 1988, they had done the first few episodes in Hammond, Louisiana, and moved the show to Georgia, to Covington, Georgia. And so I went down, and that very first day of filming, I can remember being on the set. There were probably, this was a murder scene that the extras were there to be gawkers. And, so everybody who was in the show essentially was in this murder scene, the entire cast. And most of them had flown in on the red eye the night before from Los Angeles. So we're here on the set, and I can remember the day. It's a very hot August day, and I see Carol O'Connor walking in. I'm thinking, "Wow, there's Archie Bunker," uh, and
Yeah.
he's carrying his phone case. And of course, phone cases were like this back then. And he plops it down on his chair in the middle. We're out in the middle of the woods in southern Georgia, or eastern Georgia, over there in Covington, east of Atlanta. And I just remember the awe that I had in seeing this man that I grew up getting to know as Archie Bunker. And of course, Carol O'Connor was there, Howard Rollins was there, Alan Autry, Jeffrey Thorne, David Hart, um, Hugh O'Connor was there that day. So pretty much the entire police uh, department at that time was there. So I got to meet him. Alan and I became friends, and but Carol O'Connor that day was my first day to do a scene with Carol because
Wow.
they separated us out. They picked me and another extra to do this scene, just little bitty bit scene with Carol.
Yeah.
And I can remember standing, we're waiting for the director to say action. And, Carol's going to go out, and then I'm going to go out, and this other extra is going to go out, and he looks over at both of us and says, and this is very, very ironic. He looks over and says, uh, you young men don't do drugs, do you?
Oh no. How
The
about that?
good Lord wouldn't want you to do drugs. And that was the opening thing that Carol O'Connor said to me, other than
Wow.
hello.
Certainly
Um,
not what you'd expect Archie Bunker to say.
Yeah.
no, but and why I say it was ironic. Obviously, you know the story, I'm sure,
Mm.
of his son,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Carol's son Hugh,
Yeah.
and what eventually came. But that day, that always impressed me. That was it was a breaking the ice kind of thing. He was saying it in a light-hearted way with a message intent, but he was trying to break the ice to make us feel comfortable, so we would do what we needed to do in that scene.
Sure. Sure.
Because you're taught as an extra, you don't speak to the principal actors unless spoken to. So
Oh,
you don't
okay.
go up and say, "Hello, Mr. O'Connor, how are you?"
Yeah.
You stand there with your mouth
Yeah.
shut unless he says something to you, and then you do what you're directed to do.
So what attracted them? What attracted you to them to be a regular on the show, Randall?
Well, I'm going to say that first exposure day was a major inroad for me as a performer.
Good.
What I didn't realize, I was there at 5 o'clock in the morning, dark outside, standing outside the wardrobe trailer. A gentleman walks by, looks me up and down, says, you look an awful lot like a police officer.
Oh.
I didn't have any earthly idea who he was. I said, thank you. He went on his merry way. And so I later found out, and this is what happened. That first day they paired me with Carol. They brought me back the next day. They brought me back then the next day. They kept bringing me in, and they put me in scenes. I had no idea what was going on, but they put me in various scenes as an extra with other principal members of the cast.
Hmm.
And then this went on for a couple of 3 weeks. And then they came to me and said, we're planning on adding another police character to the show, and we want you to be that character.
Wow.
Wow.
That's awesome.
So I was receiving an on camera audition of how I would interact on the set with the other actors, both behind the scenes and on camera. They were
Hmm.
looking at me compared to the other actors on the dailies. Um, they were seeing how I carried myself. So basically, I was blessed. They talk about in Hollywood big breaks.
Mm.
Hmm.
That was a big break.
Sure.
You don't you generally every now and then extras will get what we call a bump. That means they'll be in the right place at the right time, and they'll be with a principal actor, and there's a necessity for them to say something, so they're bumped from an extra to a principal. So that happens in LA. It's not often, but it does happen. But to jump from extra to series regular, uh, that was a very big bump,
I'd say
and
so. That
and
was.
uh, I owe that casting director, the actors, Carol O'Connor. Of course, Carol O'Connor, I didn't realize it at the time. I did later on in our relationship, but early on, he got on board and was part of my cheerleading team.
Good.
Uh, as time went on, I found out that other executive producers were part of my cheerleading team. And I later found out that gentleman who said, "You look an awful lot like a police officer," was one of those people.
Mm.
So I think God put you in the right place at the right time, and hopefully you've been equipped to do the job that He needs
Yes.
you to run through the door and do. And that for me was that relationship. And then Carol O'Connor, from that point forward, as I said, became a cheerleader. And I was blessed to become another son to Carol. Of course, he had Hugh, but he treated me like a son, and we were very blessed to spend a lot of time together. I heard a lot of his stories of the time he was doing the Cleopatra and the different movies that he did, and of course Archie Bunker as in the All in the Family and the Archies Place series and all the other things in his life. Even just things like back when he was going to school. So he invested in me, and he opened doors, and he wrote scenes specifically for me to play. And
Hmm.
it was an amazing relationship. Now, that doesn't, when I say that we were like father and son, I'm going to also add to that, we also had some father and son moments. And that means that they were not always rosy, they were
Yeah.
sometimes tense. But that was the nature of, that's the nature of all relationships.
Tell us about, uh, I didn't do this research on this, and I apologize, but you also are the chair to a film type of organization in Georgia. Tell us about that.
Well, I've been blessed. I've currently rolled off. I was part of the Georgia Production Partnership. I still serve on one of their major committees, government relations. But I served on the board for roughly a decade of Georgia Production Partnership, and that organization uh, basically has been the driving force behind the film industry in our state. When things were, we've had three great. Um, I guess you would say, peaks in the film industry in Georgia. We had the 1970s when Burt Reynolds was the huge star and he was doing all his movies in Georgia, from Deliverance on up to Smoking the Bandit and everything in between, uh, and everything that came after. Then in the late 1980s, we had the show that I was a part of, In the Heat of the Night, I'll Fly Away, Savannah, and so many other movies, from Fried Green Tomatoes. That was the next peak period in the late 80s, early 90s. And then we sort of had a waning period. Um, there was an effort by the homegrown directors, producers, technicians, talent to sort of take the film industry by the horns in Georgia and make it a vehicle for our homegrown people. You know,
Hmm.
we've often been, in those years, we were the backlot of Hollywood. We wanted Georgia to be a thriving force in the film industry.
I
And
agree.
so they created, and I say they, there was a group of about four people who got together with the input of some others, but the four key people put together a incentive program. This came in along in the mid 2000s and kept pushing. They were managed to get one little incentive program through about 2004, which I participated in, uh, getting the Senate and the legislature to help pass that through testifying for the Senate. And then in 2008, we got our big package through, which was our 30% incentive, which the legislature and the governor signed. And that's what created now this gorilla that is currently the Georgia film industry. Of course, now with the pandemic, it's shut off. But we had went from, in 2008-9, from a $290 million industry to a actual spend $2.9 billion industry in the state of Georgia, with an
Hmm.
estimated rollover spend of close to $10 billion
I didn't know
in the
that.
state
Yeah.
of Georgia from the film industry. So I've been very blessed to be a part of that group. I'll mention those four people as, Rick Wrights, Wilbur Fitzgerald, two amazing talents that I've worked with in projects. Shay Bentley Griffin, a casting director who's been very much a mentor to me in the state of Georgia, and Ed Spivey, who was the first, I believe he was the first film commissioner under Jimmy Carter back
Hmm.
many, many years ago. And, but either way, he was very, very much a part of this process. And we lost Ed year before last now.
Hmm.
But
Mm-mm-mm.
these people, those four, helped to drive Georgia Production Partnership in this effort. And I've been blessed to get on the train and ride along with them. And I still work with them regularly, as even now we try to encourage new facets in the legislation that will encourage movement of the film industry out from the metro areas into the rural areas like ours. We've been blessed with a few projects up in Northwest Georgia, but we want more. We want that pie to be spread out across the state. We want small towns to get the opportunity for our young people to go to the film academy and learn how to become the technicians, the directors, the
Right.
producers. And that's a focus that I've had over my time serving with GPP. And thank goodness we're getting closer every year we get a few more things on the checklist ticked off. So I'm hopeful that we will be able to see even greater widespread when we get to come back from whatever we're dealing with now in the film industry world. It's going to be interesting to see the startup again. I'm anxious to see how that works.
Uh, And as you know, we're trying to get in this area. You know, Jason and Amy Carter
Yes,
in the movie Kind Katie, that's trying to be, it's in development. So that would be, I think, a big draw for this area and a big boost. And God bless, you know, Jason and Amy. We interviewed them, what, last week, Mike, or so? And
2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago. And so we have them on our Facebook site, Afternoon Coffee with Mike and Tim. For other, and this one will be as well. But your heart just goes out to them, and we would hope their story would be told, and we certainly appreciate your input on that as well, and what you've already done, and hopefully what you can help us out in the future with John Graham as well.
yeah. I have been blessed to, of course, work with many of the people working with John. Have been involved with us at Georgia Production Partnership, and of course was very enthusiastic to learn about the project that John is spearheading for them. And I'm hopeful, as I am for all the movies. Like myself, being a screenwriter, Carol O'Connor helped teach me how to write screenplays as well as Alan Autry. And, I have several on my shelf that I continue to push to producers trying to get new movies and new television shows pushed and going. I'd love to see some of those up here. And of course, Kind Katie, of course, I was blessed to see Katie grow up. And of course, her sister is one of our scholars from the scholarship fund. And,
Right.
we've got Kimmy is such an amazing talent as well, Kimmy Carter, and we're hopeful. We're hopeful for all those projects, and of course, that's going to be a wonderful story when eventually they bring it to the screen.
Yes, it will be. We are in debt to you for this time that we've spent together, and we certainly appreciate all your time here.
Well, it's my honor to be with you, and thank you for sharing your audience with me. And I look forward. Folks can find us at randallfranks.com. You'll see our stores. We have some specials right now. We've got a couple of new projects that are available, from our Encouragers 3 book, which folks can find a special there with a CD and one of my movies as well. So come visit us at randallfranks.com.
And do you still write a column, that Southern style column? Do you still write in that?
I still do, and folks can find that on that page on my website, randallfranks.com, every Wednesday. It as well is printed in newspapers across the South and the Midwest. Very blessed to have a large number of readers who follow us each and every week. Every week is not funny, but every now and again I have some funny stuff, and sometimes it's serious, and sometimes it's my perspective on slices of life that I see, as well as interviews with other entertainers. So it varies from week to week, but there's always something interesting in Southern style. So come and
Well,
see us there as well.
you've been compared to Louis Grizzard, which is like a huge compliment. Here in the South, he's an icon. Yeah, so
I can't believe that comparison, but I'm very thankful for it. I tell you that.
absolutely.
And then one thing we didn't mention, and we'll sum up with this: you are a city council member, and tell the folks what town.
City of Ringgold, Georgia. Been blessed to serve here as a city council member since 2009, as well as working on numerous committees and nonprofits in the area. It is my honor to serve the people of Ringgold and be a part of building this community and keeping it strong in times of trouble, and when things are going good, helping to sing and herald its successes.
Right, and we look forward to opening up our town once again. I know we have an annual 1890s Day. We've got other things of the Christmas parade and all that. So, and you are a big person in that to make sure that happens, and with other people in the community, I realize. But you're one of the organizers, and I truly appreciate that. That keeps our town of Ringgold alive and vibrant and moving in this town. Folks, if you come through here, I would like to say it's the gateway to Georgia, because to Atlanta and that whole area, because you've got to go through. If you're coming from Chattanooga, you go through Ringgold, and then you can head toward Atlanta. But please stop and shop in Ringgold. And it is a town that is moving, and it is on the map, folks. And it's looking better every day. We got big projects going, don't we, Rand?
We have some wonderful visioning projects coming that we've had council members over the last 20 years that have invested their time and energy in creating a great vision for this community. We're seeing many of those things now come to fruition. Of course, those visions are constrained by the opportunities of revenue. And this year is going to be one of those constrained years, but we still have some things that we're hopeful will get accomplished in 2020 that our friends who are visiting will see. Of course, if you come to town, we have some wonderful history. The downtown historic district, our downtown shopping district there, you can see through our walking areas, you can see the wonderful narrative tablets that tell the history of the community and the great events. Of course, 1890s days, unfortunately, this year will not happen, but I'm sure by the time we get back around to the fall, we will see our fall events kicked up, and Down Home Christmas will be a blowout, I'm sure.
Well, you've lived a lifetime, and you could have stopped. You could have stopped at in the heat of the night, and that would have been something that someone would have said, you know what, I accomplished that, and now I need to move on. But you stuck with the acting, and not only that, you're giving yourself as a city council member and giving your time and mentoring others. And I think we need possibly a third program, because we haven't even touched on your time with other stars. I mean, from the Grand Ole Opry and Dolly Parton, Stella Parton, and others. I mean, we want to know a lot more about Dolly, and your time that you were honored to have with her. And I got to say, when Carol O'Connor and you met, and you said, "Oh, there's Carol O'Connor," he probably said, "Oh, there's Randall Franks."
I doubt that, but you're very kind to say so. But later on in life, we were very blessed to spend so much time together. One of my favorite memories is when my mother and I went to join Carol and Nancy and Hugh and Hugh's girlfriend at the time for Thanksgiving dinner many
Oh,
years ago in their family home. And so it was, we were very close, and they're all gone now. And I was very gratified a few years ago, when Hugh had one son. His name is Sean, and his wife's name is Angela. And but Sean reached out to me a few years ago, and I was very blessed by that, because he just told me that he wanted to know a little bit more of the people that were close to his dad, and
mhm.
I was very honored that he reached out that way.
Thank you for sharing this time with us. We're honored to have you on the show. We really are.
Well, it's my pleasure, and hopefully we'll get to see you again soon. And thanks for sharing once again your time with me.
Guests on the Afternoon Coffee podcast stay at the Real Rest Inns and Suites, the only 2-star hotel in the tri-state area with a don't ask, don't tell policy for snakes and other exotic pets.
This episode has been made possible by our awesome intro voice, Heather Foster. You can find out more about her at heatherfostervoice.com. All music has been provided and produced by Marble Planet Productions. You can hear more about them on Instagram at Marble Planet Productions. If you'd like to get in contact with us, you can either email us at afternooncoffeepodcast@gmail.com or tweet us at afternoonjava.